One-pot meals are my favorite recipes to make, and today we are focusing on 4 super simple, budget-friendly one-pot recipes that your family is going to absolutely love. For this first recipe, we are making Marry Me chicken pasta. This was so good. I've got 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and I'm just seasoning it to our taste. So I'm doing Mrs. Dash. I'm also going to go in with some parsley flakes, and I'm just eyeing this. I'm not measuring anything right now. I'm also going to go in with some Italian seasoning as well. I'm going to coat everything really well with that, and then I'm going to go in with some onion powder. If you wanted to dice up a real onion, you could feel free to do that, but I didn't do that today. And then I'm also going to go in with some Montreal chicken seasoning. After I go over my chicken a couple times with all those seasonings, I'm just going to stir it up, and I'm just going to start letting this cook until it is fully cooked through. And then once my chicken is fully cooked through, I'm going to take it out of the pan. Just going to set it over to the side, and then once I do that, I'm going to add in a teaspoon of minced garlic, and I'm going to get that a little bit fragrant. And I'm also going to take some sun-dried tomatoes. I did take mine and chop them down a little bit. You don't have to do that. If you just want to throw yours in as is, that's fine, but I wanted to chop mine down a little bit, and I threw those in there, and I got them a little bit sauteed with the garlic and just kind of let them get fragrant and get a little bit warm. Just kind of let those flavors start blending. But if you don't want to do this step, you don't have to. You can skip it and just throw everything into the pot at the same time together to be a little quicker. And then once I finish that, I'm going to add in my chicken broth, and I'm doing 4.5 cups. I want leftovers with this, so I'm going to go ahead and throw in a whole box of pasta. I'm using Penne Pasta, and once my chicken broth gets good and hot and starts boiling, I'm going to throw the whole box in there. Want to substitute this pasta, you can use whatever type of pasta you want, but I'm going to throw that in there, give it a little stir, and then cover it up. And I am going to stir this a couple times just to make sure nothing is sticking or burning. Once my pasta is fully cooked, I'm going to add about 1/2 cup to a cup of heavy whipping cream. I just kind of eyed this, but you can add as much as you want or as little, just depending on how rich you want it. Next, I'm adding our favorite cheeses to this, so I am going to add some Monterey Jack cheese to this, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on there, as well as some Italian style cheese. Italian style cheese does have Parmesan in it, as well as some other cheeses. It's so good. And if you didn't want to do this though, and you just wanted to do Parmesan, you could do that. You could do mozzarella, whatever you want. Then once I finish putting my cheese in there, I'm going to add my chicken back in as well. Give this a stir and then cover it up and let it melt. And I see that mine is just a little bit dry, so I went ahead and added a little bit more heavy whipping cream, but you could actually do chicken broth instead and add some extra of that if you wanted to. But that's it. Once you get the sauce the way you like it, this is finished and ready to serve. This was absolutely delicious. My family loved this recipe, and it was so simple. Next, we are making one-pot taco spaghetti. This was so good. I've got 1 pound of ground beef here, and I'm just working on chopping that up and cooking it. Once I get that fully cooked, I'm going to remove it and strain the grease from it, and then I'm going to add in my taco seasoning. I'm going to add in my water as well, so I'm doing 2 cups of that because I'm going to make some beef broth with it. So first, before I add in my bouillon cubes, I'm going to stir this up and get my seasoning mixed in really well. I'm going to add in my bouillon cubes to make the beef broth. I'm also going to go in with some pasta sauce. It does not matter what kind, but I'm using tomato, basil, garlic. Just going to add some of that in there. I would say about 1/4 cup. I ended up probably adding about half the jar once this was all said and done. But for now, I'm just going to do maybe about 1/4 cup. I'm going to stir that around, get it really hot, and let it start boiling. I am going to be using half-length spaghetti for this, but if you want to use full length, that's perfectly fine too. Also, I used about half of a 16-ounce box, so I would say about maybe 8 ounces or maybe a little more of pasta. I put it in the pot and I covered it up and let it cook. I stirred it around a few times during this to make sure the noodles didn't stick together or stick to the bottom. And then as it was finishing up, I decided I wanted to add some more pasta sauce. So I threw that in there and stirred it around and then covered it back up and let those flavors kind of blend together. And once everything was fully cooked, I added some drained and rinsed black beans and some corn. I did a can of each of those. And then I just stirred that up and let the corn and beans heat for just a minute, and that's it. This was ready to serve. I topped it with some fresh cilantro, and this was amazing. For For this next one, we're doing creamy beef pasta. This was really good also, and I did 1 pound of hamburger for this, as well as I added in 3 sausage patties. I had these in my freezer that I needed to use, so I went ahead and threw them in as well, and it helped the meat go farther, and it was a cheaper way to do that rather than adding 2 pounds of hamburger. So after I added those in and got those cooked, I removed them and I added in a teaspoon of minced garlic, and I sauteed that for a minute to let it get good and fragrant. And then I'm going to add in 4 cups of my beef broth. I'm also going to season this up a little bit, so I'm doing 3 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. I'm just going to throw that right in there as well, and then I'm going to mix everything up, and I'm also going to add back in my ground beef. You just want to leave your ground beef out and add it back in at the very end. You can do that. Usually that is what I do, but this time I just went ahead and put it back in and it did fine. But I'm just going to stir that up a little bit, and then I'm going to add in my pasta. I'm using 1 whole box of penne pasta in this recipe as well. I really like the penne pasta, but like I've said before, you can use any pasta that you want. After I dump that whole box in there, I'm just going to take my wooden spoon and I'm just going to push the pasta down below the liquid line to make sure everything's covered. I replaced the lid onto the pot and let everything cook for a little while. I did take the lid off several times and just stir it around to make sure nothing was burning or sticking. Once my pasta becomes fully cooked and tender, I'm going to finish the sauce up. So I've got some heavy cream here, and I'm going to do about a cup of that in this. Feel free to adjust that accordingly to your taste, of course, but once I pour that in there, I'm going to stir this up really well, and then I'm going to add my shredded cheeses to this. So I'm using my Italian style cheese from the previous recipe, and I'm just going to dump some of that in there, and then my Monterey Jack cheese from the previous recipe. So those went for 2 different recipes, which worked out well. So I get as much cheese in there as I want. I'm going to stir that up and melt it, and then this is ready to serve if your sauce looks the way you want it. If not, you can always add more beef broth or more heavy cream, but that's it. This was so creamy and so delicious. This recipe also gave us leftovers, which I absolutely love. I love having leftovers. I feel like it makes weeknight dinners so much easier. And then those sausage patties that I added in also gave it extra flavor. This was so good. Lastly, we are making sausage tortellini. I've got 2 packs of smoked sausage here that I have chopped up, and I'm just going to saute these in the skillet. This is optional. If you don't feel like sauteing them first, you can just throw everything in at once. But once I do that, I've got a 36-ounce bag of frozen cheese tortellini, and I'm just going to dump about 3/4 of it in there. If you did get this size bag and you wanted to go ahead and add the whole bag in, you could do that, but you might want to get just a little bit more pizza sauce if you do this. But I have here 1 jar of pizza sauce, and I'm going to dump the whole jar in there. And then I did get just a little bit of water in the jar just to shake it up to get the rest of the pizza sauce out of there, and I dumped that in there as well. I really didn't do a whole lot of water though, because I didn't want to make this watery. And once I did that, I just gave it a little stir to kind of mix everything around, and I just cooked this for a little bit to let the cheese tortellini thaw out and fully cook through. I did add a little bit of my own seasoning to this, so I did just a little bit of Kinder's garlic parmesan seasoning. I love this seasoning. I feel like it went really well in there. And then I also did some Italian seasoning. But once I get that seasoned the way I like it and give it a good stir to mix everything up, I'm just going to add my cheese to this. So I'm doing shredded mozzarella cheese. I just dumped a bunch of that in there and stirred this up and let it melt. And that's it. This was such a super simple, delicious recipe. It came together in no time, and my family absolutely loved it. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite and which one you plan to try. Thanks for watching. Bye.